everyone, it's me, Terry, of the Yarn Joy podcast. This is part 2 of the Stripes-A-Slant throw tutorial. If you missed part 1, I will link it down below in the description box, both left and right-handed versions, okay? So in part 1, we followed the pattern all the way down. Let me bring it up here closer. We followed the pattern all the way down until we had this little section right here where we had to do a whole bunch of not increases. Well, they were increases, but it was a whole bunch of repeats. And these letters were giving you all the color change information. And so I had mentioned that I had written it down. Let me lay this down. Okay, I had written it down on my little tablet here. These are the colors for these letters, and as I did the rows, I just marked them off of my tablet. And the very last row we had to do was F, which in my case, I'm using white, but previously, all the times that you would use the color F, you would do a half double crochet row, but the very last one, it says in the instructions or the pattern to do that F with a double crochet instead of a half double crochet, okay? So that was our homework that we had to work on, is do all these repeats with all the different colors. So I've done my part, and so I'm ready to go ahead and go to the next section, and that is what part 2 is going to be. So in part 2, or at the end of part 1, are these repeats. It said work 1 row F in double crochet. So I did that, not half double crochet, see? And then it says, and mark each end of this row. So let me show you that. Oh, I will pop in a picture right here. Here is the what mine is looking like right now. So I've reached the halfway point of the middle section of that blanket. And so yeah, that's what it's looking like. Okay, so let's go on and I will show you. Move this out of the way and let me show you my blanket. Of course, you can't see the whole thing because it's so big right now. But I do want to show you that you're supposed to mark each end of this row. And so here is my F that I did in double crochet. And so I marked in the beginning we had a chain 4, and so I marked it in the 3rd chain. That is the beginning of my row. And then at the end of my row, here's the end over here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark that last stitch, but then we're also getting ready to do a color change. So I've already did the chain 1, and so now I just need to double crochet into the 3rd chain, which creates the edge stitch, and that stitch right there is the one I need to mark, okay? So I'm going to take my stitch marker and I'm going to put a marker in that last stitch, okay? So now we are ready to do the decrease row. So in the instructions, it says join E. So my letter E is this pink color, light pink color. So I'm going to do that. Now, remember when you're changing colors, I had to pull this out a little bit. So when you're changing colors, you only do part, like the first half of the double crochet. So I'm going to put those 2 loops back on my hook. Okay, now I'm going to take my pink and go ahead and finish that double crochet with the pink, and that will change my color. Okay, now going on, it says join E, which I did that, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and as I mentioned before, I like to do my chain and then turn my work, even though a lot of times in the patterns it'll say turn your work first and do the chain, but I just prefer to do it this way. It doesn't matter. Okay, so I chained 4. Now I'm going to turn my work over because I'm going to work on the other end, so I need to shift everything on this side. Okay. Okay, get all my yarn here straightened out. Okay, so chain 4, and then it says, ordinarily what we were doing is we were then doing our first chain, our first 3 double crochets in that first hole there, but it says to lost my place on the pattern. Okay, skip Oh yeah, so it says to skip that chain 1 space, and we're going to go all the way over to the next hole, and we're going to do our 3 double crochets over here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now let's look at that. So we skipped that first hole, and we just skipped over past these 3 double crochets, and we did our first 3 double crochet groupings in this hole right here. This, yeah, between these 2 shells, I guess you call them shells. Okay, now it says work 3 double crochet in between each set of 3 double crochets across. So now we're going to do the same thing we have been doing. So we're going to do 3 double crochets into the next hole. Okay. Pull out some yarn here. Okay. And then 3 double crochets into the next hole. Okay, so we're going to do the granny stitch just the way we've been doing. It's just that the beginning and the ending instructions are just a little bit different. And that will create decreases. So what we're doing is, in our first half of our project, it created a triangle. And so now we're going to start decreasing down to a point, and that is going to finish creating our square, because a square is 2 triangles, right, put together. Okay, so I'm just going to work this row across. We're just doing 3 double crochets into each hole all the way across, and then I will meet you when I get at the end of this row. I'm coming to the end of this row, and so now I'm going to show you the decrease on this side. So I've got one more whole space between the 2 3 double crochet sets. I've got one more of those to do, so I'm going to do 3 double crochets into that space between those 2 3 double crochet groupings. Okay, and then ordinarily we would then also put 3 double crochets in this last opening right here, which is the chain 1 space, but they're wanting us to skip that chain 1 space and just do 1 double crochet into the edge, or the third chain from the bottom. We're going to skip that chain 1 space, in other words. So I'm going to go into the edge stitch, and I'm just going to do 1 double crochet. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and finish my double crochet because I'm not going to change colors. Okay, so that is how you do the decrease on that end. Now going back to our instructions here, it says work 3 double crochets in between each set of 3 double crochets across, which is what we did, and then skip the last chain 1 space, which was there. Okay, we skipped that, and we just did a double crochet in the last stitch. Okay, and now it says repeat this decrease row in colors as follows. And the first thing it says is, it says 2 more rows with color E. Okay, now, and then let me go ahead and show you the picture here. I went ahead and put a square around the decrease section that we're working on, and that's where it says repeat decrease row in colors as follows, and then it has all those letters here, and it tells you, just like they did when we're doing the increases. They say 2 more rows of E, 1 row of A, 1 row of E, 1 row of A, 1 row of F, and then that F, we're going to go back to doing half double crochets. We're not doing the F in the double crochet. We just did that in that 1 row, and that was it. The last row of our part 1. And so I looked at all these repeats right here, and I wrote it out just like I did before when we were doing the increasing. I wrote it out on my tablet here. So you can take a screenshot if you want to there. This E right here, okay, so this first E right there is the pink row that I just completed. So see, I can mark that one off. And then it said to repeat E 2 more times. So that's why I put 2 more E's, okay? So that's where you are, or that's where we are in the pattern right now. So like I said, if you want to take a screenshot of all these repeats, now I did the same thing as I did before, is I wrote the colors that I am using for each of those letters. So these words right here, of course, would be different for you if you're using different colors, okay? So it says 2 more rows of E, and then a row of A, which is my green, and then E, see that? And then A. And then here's the first time we use F again. And see, I wrote half double crochet in parentheses there. So just to remind me that I'm going to start using half double crochets again, just for the F's. Okay? And so that's what I'm going to be doing now for homework. Now I'll get you started off on the edge again, but you're going to be doing the decrease rows just like I did this past row with you. I'll get you started again at the beginning of the row, which will be my second E right there, and then we will close out this video, and you'll have homework to do until next week for part 3. Okay, so let me go ahead and move this out of the way, and then I'm going to come back to my work here, and so I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing. I'm going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I'm going to turn my work over. Got to move all this big blanket out of the way. So I turn my work over, and then instead of going into that first hole right there, I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to do 3 double crochets into the next hole right here. See that? So 3 double crochets. 1, oops, 2, 3. Oops, okay, just like that. And now I'm going to go repeat that all the way across, doing 3 double crochets into the space that's between all the 3 double crochets all the way across, just, you know, like the granny stitch, what we've been doing. Okay, so that is how you get started. You're just skipping the first hole. You're chaining 4 just like regular. You're skipping the first hole, and you start working your 3 double crochets in the next one. And then when you get to the end, instead of doing 3 double crochets, let me show you the end. So when I get to the end over here, instead of doing, I'll do 3 double crochets into this hole right there. And then instead of doing 3 double crochets into the last hole, I'm just going to do a single double crochet. I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to do a single double crochet in the 3rd chain up from the bottom there, you know, right there. And that will be the edge stitch. Sorry if that was off frame. So I'm going to skip this hole, 3 double crochets here, skip the next hole, and then do just a double crochet, forming another edge stitch in the 3rd chain up. Okay, so that's the repeats. So we're going to follow the order of the color changing, okay, all the way to the last 5 rows will be color A. That will be like the last stripe. And of course, each row, as you're decreasing, they're going to get shorter and shorter. So I'm going to be working on mine, and I will come back and add a little tag onto this video probably. Yeah, I'll do it that way. I'll get all my repeats, the color changes done, and then I will do the last couple of rows with you at the end of this video. I mean, well, for you it'll just be in just a little bit, but that's my homework, is to finish up all these rows, the color changes. I've been working my decrease rows, all the repeats, and the last section that we needed to do was 5 rows of color A. And so, and with these decrease, of course, each time the rows have been getting shorter because you're working toward a corner. Well, I have my 4 rows right here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so I need to turn, chain 4, turn my work, and do my very last row, and then I'll show you how to finish off. Okay, so I'm going to chain 4 because I like to do the turning chain before I turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to turn my work over. It's a big project now. Okay, let me get you in frame. Okay, so I turn my work over, and just like how we've been doing all of our decrease rows, I'm skipping this chain 1 space right here. I'm putting a 3 double crochet group into the next hole between these 2 3 double crochet groups. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then I'm now at the end, so I'm going to chain 1, and then we're going to skip this chain 1 space, and we're just going to double crochet into the 3rd chain because this was a chain 4, original chain 4, and so the 3rd chain of that chain 4, we're just going to do a double crochet, and that'll give us our edge stitch. Okay, and then in the instructions it says ending with 3 double crochets in A, so that's just the row that we just did, and then it says turn our work, chain 2, and then slip stitch in the top of the 1st double crochet, which is making the corner space, and then fasten off. Okay, well, I have a little problem with that. Well, okay, let's do this. So chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to turn our work back again to make our corner stitch. Let me get you in the frame. Okay, and then it says to slip stitch in the top of the 1st double crochet, which is over here, and to me that's not the corner of that row, like the center. That's not, I think what they're talking about is the slip stitch into the 1st double crochet from the previous row, which was actually this one before we turned. So I'm going to slip stitch into that one, which going this direction is going to be the 3rd double crochet, and I'm going to slip stitch right there. The reason being because when you look at it and you see where that chain 2 is, you can see that it's the corner, right? It makes the corner. Otherwise, if you put it in the 1st double crochet, it's going to be lopsided. So that's where I am fastening off. Okay, so I'm going to cut my yarn and just pull that loop, just pull it through to fasten off. Okay, and now I can use my yarn needle, weave in my ends, this end. I have already been weaving in my ends with, you know, as I went after several stripes, then I'll go back and weave in my ends. So I've already weaved in my ends. So at the very end of this video, to finish off part 2 of the tutorial, I'm going to weave this in, but I'm going to insert a picture of what it's now a square, and what this project is looking like. Okay, so here's that picture right here. All right, so that is the end of part 2 of our crochet along the Stripes-A-Slant throw. So be working on all your decreasing rows so you'll end up with a square. And I will meet you here back next Tuesday for the Stripes-A-Slant throw part 3. And we will start working on the ends, making it into a rectangle, and also the final border. Okay, thanks for watching the video, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.